Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to be talking about this, the Lomography Petzval 55mm prime lens. This is a modern take on a classic Joseph Petzval lens design from the 19th century, but updated for modern full frame cameras. In my case, the Sony A7R4. Now, Lomography UK were kind enough to send me this lens to try out. They've not asked me to say anything in particular. They've not asked me to do this video. They just wanted my thoughts for an article that they're writing. But I figured I might as well share those thoughts with you guys as well. So the original Petzval lenses back in the 19th century were known for their distinctive swirly bokeh, which created these dreamy images. Now, Petzval didn't actually patent his lenses, and other lens makers like Voigtlander quickly soon hopped on this trend and began making their own versions of it. But this sticks to the original Petzval design way back in the 19th century and brings it right up to date. So I decided to go out with Sam, take some portraits and see what we could create with it. So there you go. Thank you so much to Sam for being my model, as always. Now, for me personally, the biggest pro of this lens is also kind of the biggest con, which is that the center of the frame is exceptionally sharp. For a lens that doesn't cost a lot of money, the middle kind of 25% of the image is incredibly sharp. However, as soon as you get outside of that, it's unusable for me in terms of if your subject isn't right in center of frame, it's gone. I'm going to show you now a few images of Sam that I took where his beard is perfectly in focus and really crisp, but his eyes are really, really blurry. Now, if you know this going in, you can shoot within that and make sure that you kind of shoot wide enough to get your entire subject sharp, or you can use it in an artistic way to create images that you like. But for me, whilst, yes, it does give incredible quality in that middle 25%, you do have to be very kind of deliberate with your shooting, which is great for some people, but not for others. However, this is a manual focus lens, so you're going to be being quite deliberate with it anyway. And it's all about slowing down that process and I think really kind of creating art more than images. I think that was kind of the original purpose of this lens. Now, another pro is that when you do get your subject in frame, get your subject crispy, that background is unlike anything I've seen. It's really, really distinctive, as I mentioned before, and you can create some really stunning images where the background does draw you into the subject, but it also is interesting in and of itself. So that's something that I've not seen with any other kind of lens that's freely available for mirrorless cameras without having to use an adapter and using a vintage lens. So you do get that kind of vintage aesthetic without having to go through using adapters and potentially risking that image quality. So that's a huge plus. And another pro is that this is pretty solidly built. It's metal construction. The focus rings, the bokeh control ring and the aperture ring are all really, really good quality. Yeah, this feels like it's a real tank, to be fair. Well done in Lomography on the build quality of this. Now, in terms of the cons, obviously I've already mentioned about image quality, so moving on other than that, the 3-ring setup on the lens is quite a steep learning curve. So right at the back, you've got your focus control. In the middle, you've got your aperture ring. And then at the front, you've got your bokeh control ring, which basically increases or decreases the strength of the swirly bokeh. Now, for me, it made sense to kind of work back to front, get my focus right, make sure that my aperture's good, and then do the bokeh control. However, the bokeh control actually slightly opens and closes the aperture. So you can't expose properly until you've done the bokeh control, because it does slightly change. It's probably by maybe like a third of a stop, but it does change the exposure as you're going through. And if you're going kind of all the way from, it goes from 1 to 7. If you're going all the way from 1 to 7, that can be like a stop and a half. The exposure's changed by doing that. So it's kind of going from the back to get it in focus, then to the front to do the bokeh control, then the middle for the aperture, and then once you've done all them, obviously sorting out your settings in camera. So it is a steep learning curve. Now, we were shooting for probably about 45 minutes or so, and I did get quicker during that process, and I'm sure it would get quicker moving onwards, but it is something to be aware of. You cannot just pick this lens up and use it straight away. You do have to kind of get used to it in order to get the good quality images, which it definitely can produce. And that's kind of it, really. To summarize, a really well-built lens that is unlike pretty much anything out there that you can get that just goes straight onto a full-frame mirrorless camera. It has got a steep learning curve, but when you can get through that, the images that it produces are both exceptionally high in quality in terms of the sharpness in the center of the frame, and also that background blur is, like I say, it's unlike anything that I've seen. Now, for the price point, these are going for around kind of $400, pounds, euros. They're all kind of around the same price point. For that price point, I don't think that that's bad at all. Now, this is not a lens that you're going to use all the time. It's just not. It's manual focus. There's a lot to create in each individual image. But if you're looking for something that gives you that vintage aesthetic, something that gives you really distinctive images, and you're not afraid of using manual focus lenses, I would definitely give this a try. I would much rather use this than a vintage lens with an adapter, because I just feel like you're gonna have no drop in quality from using an adapter, and yeah, this is a modern lens, so it's more likely to work as intended, rather than relying on a vintage lens from 20, 30, 50, 80 years ago, however long. But you let me know your thoughts. Huge thanks again to Lomography UK for sending this across. I will be quite sad to send this back to them, to be honest. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, I'll see you in the next video.